Hello, everyone, and welcome
Hello.
to Challenge Talk, part of the Geocache Talk Network. We broadcast live on the first Thursday of each month. Feel free to jump over to YouTube or Facebook to watch the broadcast live and join the wonderful and active cache room. Whoa, that's a new one. or listen to the entire show on your favorite podcast player.
In this episode, we have our first ever special guest on the show to chat about challenges, the Fizzy Grid namesake himself, fizzymagic. We also have prizes to give away each show to our listeners. Between each show, be sure to email your challenge cache finds to challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com, and you could be a winner.
And later in the show, we also play our special game exclusively for our live audience, the Wheel of Challenges. So listen live, get your email app ready, and follow instructions when the time comes so you can have a chance at winning the grand prize, a 1-year membership to Project GC. We are your hosts, Emily, Renee, and Geoff from Cache the Line.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so we always start off with a quick little icebreaker community question. We like to get challenge-related questions from you, community, and we watch for popular or common topics of discussion out there. So this month, we're going to start off with this question. What makes a challenge appeal to more people? Emily?
Well, my first instinct is to say hard, but doable. If it's not hard, it's not a challenge. I'll run a script sometimes for something, a Project GC script, and I've met the challenge and I didn't even try, so there's that. So finding something new that I can try to accomplish, put the effort in, but also know that I can do this with a little bit of work, with a little bit of planning, I can do something, and then I feel accomplished. And I say a little. I mean, it could be a lot. It doesn't have to be just a little bit of work.
Yeah, and I kind of want to latch onto that more people part of the question, because I know like people who take up challenge caches, including myself, we love the challenge. We like higher difficulty, exploring and doing things we don't necessarily do. But I think there's a big draw to simple, quick caches. Like they don't all have to be high difficulty. They can be low. And it's weird because I think the longer you have a caching career and the bigger your stats are, the obviously the more challenge caches you could just go and sign because you already qualify.
Right.
So,
but everyone has to start somewhere. And if they're all super hard, people are not going to try. They're just going to be turned off from challenge caches.
Yeah, so I think it's good to have a wide range, and don't be ashamed of putting out those easy challenges because there's always going to be new people who even finding 1,000 caches is going to be hard.
Right. And it has to be doable in your area per guidelines. So what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Yeah. And we only have 2 people here to answer this question, though. And maybe we need a third opinion.
We need someone else to answer this question.
We have a special guest tonight, and it is none other than the person who is the inspiration, as you could say, for the Fizzy grid, the difficulty terrain grid, and that is fizzymagic himself. Hello.
Hey, everybody. That's good. That's a nice warm-up question. I had a good answer for that. And what I look for in challenges that I haven't done yet is style. That is, it's got to be a challenge that is not just find N caches in XY county or something like that. It's got to be something that has a little bit of memorability to it, because what happens is I read about challenges, and there's so many challenges out there. It's the ones that stick in your brain that are the ones that you want to go out and finish. And that's the kind of challenges that I enjoy the most, or ones. And when I look back on it, I don't care particularly about what other people think of my statistics, but I really enjoy looking back on the things that I've done and feeling like I did something with a bit of panache.
I love that. That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like you can remember a specific cache and be like, I probably wouldn't have gone for that cache if it weren't for this challenge. And it's something that's really unique. That's
right.
Yeah, so we also update our monthly stats, our challenge statistics, And because challenges are getting a little more popular these days than over time, we look to Project GC, and they keep a public list of some of their generic statistics. So first of all, actually, you know what? I'm going to ask you, fizzymagic, how
Yes.
many active challenge caches do you think there are worldwide?
I'm guessing probably something on the order of 40 or 50,000.
Not too bad. Emily, what do you think?
Oh, goodness. I
You
guess I
remember
could cheat
numbers
and look
from
at the
last week?
notes, but yeah, I mean, I don't disagree.
Well, as of about mid-afternoon, that was about 5 hours ago, there were 29,998 active challenge caches worldwide with the challenge in the title.
Okay.
Just doing an attribute search, there were about 400 less. So there's about 25,578. And you know what? I'm kind of curious to see if it has crossed over to 30,000 for the challenge. Oh, no, it went up to 1. It's 29,999 with challenge in the title.
Okay,
Oh, my
someone
goodness.
tonight needs to hide a challenge during this
30,000,
show.
come on. So Project GC lists their specific details for all of the scripts. So this month, there are 5,427 active scripts, and these are the individual things that handle those checkers. So one script could potentially manage 10, 50, 100 different challenge ideas, concepts, depending on how it's written. There are 34,126 unique challenges, so that's different parameter sets, and 41,088 active tags. So that would be unique checkers by GC code. So Project GC, so that includes archive caches and historic stuff, but they've got 41,088 unique individual challenge cache listings listed. So that's up by about, active tags is up just over 700 since last month. And active challenge caches by attribute has gone up by 578. That number is going to be large because they were rolling out those attributes to existing challenge caches. Now, coming up to our news item, as of October 13th, all existing challenge caches should have the attribute added automatically. And from now on, it's up to the cache owner to add that attribute, that challenge cache attribute themselves. And ideally, the reviewer will catch it before it's published. So that's our way to identify challenge caches now, that attribute. So we also have a follow-up question from last month. Well, not so much a question, a feedback from Jokeerus, Jokeerus, about the challenge caching strategies. And so Kimberly says, I create a bookmark list broken down into categories such as challenge, date-related or location-based, icon-related, in the name, like titles with specific words, dog, guardrail, etc., or titles that start A to Z. A list for DT-related challenges or cache owner or reviewer-related owner names, and a list for challenges that have been met, and so forth. Some challenges obviously fit more than one list. So that's another way that people will strategize qualifying and finding those challenge caches. I tend to put them all into one list, but that's another good idea, is separating them into topical stuff. A little easier.
Yeah, because as we find a cache and think, oh, that'll work for that one, she knows right where to go in her list. Good.
Yep. All right. Well, fizzymagic tonight. It's about you.
Oh, I hope it's not about me, but it's about challenge. That's good.
About your name. About Fizzy.
fizzymagic I chose that name because I am a physicist. I've done particle, atomic, and nuclear physics, and I work at the Lawrence Livermore Lab, or I did rather. Well, actually, I still do. I retired in April of 2018, and I've been. That's not true. Sorry, 2019 of April, and then I've been coming back as a consultant recently. So I'm still working, and magic because I'm a magician. I do magic.
Cool.
So the Fizzy was a intentionally misspelled physicist, and then magic is the magic. So that's where my name came from.
So it has nothing to do with carbonated beverages or anything like that?
No, nothing. That's right.
So when did you start geocaching?
So I started geocaching in March of 2002 when my wife gave me it was actually a Magellan GPS. It was an old one that only had two digits of precision in the minutes, in the fractional minutes. And a friend of mine who was a swimmer was a little bit into it, and we swam a lot together. So I went with him and we started doing it, and I caught the bug quite quickly. And it was probably another couple months before I got myself a GPS that would actually find the caches, as opposed to get me within about 100 feet. So I really liked it from the beginning. So I started in March of 2002, and so for me, a lot of the challenges involve older caches are easy because I have so many finds from back then. Back then, I had every day we'd go, and if there was any new cache within about 50 miles, everybody was excited, and we'd go run and find the cache because there just weren't very many caches around.
Absolutely. That was fewer cachers back then.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
I actually know someone who quit because they thought geocaching was dead, but it just was the early days, and that's just how it was.
That's right. That's right.
You didn't have power trails back then, at least not 161 meters.
No. A power trail was invented probably. The first power trail I saw was probably about 2004 or 2005. Yeah, that's about the time frame when they started. And the first challenges were late 2002, early 2003. And frequently they were not mystery caches, frequently because they were at the posted coordinates. They were listed as traditionals.
Yeah. Did you actually have any challenges that, or do you remember any challenges where maybe the cache owner didn't tell you where the cache was and you had to complete the challenge and contact them to get that information?
Yes, absolutely. I haven't done it yet, but the most famous of those in my area is the Northern California DeLorme Challenge, which is where you find all the. Yeah, but I'm sure you're familiar with DeLorme challenges, and that was hidden by a guy named Brian Little Devil. You've probably seen his name because he's been around forever. He hid that one, and it's still the nominal coordinates are still about a mile from my house, right in the middle of the lab where I work that you can't get into without a badge. But but yeah, that's a great example. And you actually, the way it worked at the beginning is you would email him with your qualifying finds, and then he would send you the coordinates of the cache in an email. And I think that one, as far as I know, is grandfathered. It's still how it works.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, because
I believe that's how the Oregon DeLorme is. You're supposed to email and get the coordinates because it's classic, old.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that that has been able to survive all these years. Like, you could make changes to it and convert it into the way that challenge caches work now. But yeah, I mean, but I guess if he's responsive and still answering, then
he is. He's very responsive. He was a reviewer for a long time, but he doesn't do that anymore. But he's still very responsive and very engaged.
Good.
So yeah, you also moved into, well, did you do a lot of tracking your own statistics back then? Because there wasn't statistics on the website at that point.
No, I still track my own statistics. I have a whole bunch of ways of getting the data into my database. And so this was actually at the very beginning of that. So at the beginning, there was sort of the only thing you could look at was your number of counts, your number of finds on geocaching.com. And that was kind of the only way that you could slice and dice it. And statistics were not a thing. The first challenges that came out were not statistics-based challenges. They were challenges based on other things. And I think it was in early 2003, geocaching.com instituted premium memberships. So that was and so their first benefit of having premium membership was that you could get, you could do pocket queries, and you could download GPX files, which are these these XML files with geocaches in them, and at the time, then they also instituted this My Finds query, where you could get a query of all the finds you had, and that would come down in a GPX file, and so at the time I thought, well, this is fun, and I had written some stuff in Perl, which is the world's worst programming language almost. But anyway, it's read only. It looks like monkeys hit a typewriter when you look at the code. But anyway, I'd written some stuff in Perl that would turn the pocket queries into a ebook format that you could use on your Palm Pilots, because there were cell phones with internet connectivity were not a thing. Yeah. So when you went out to the field, a lot of people took printed pages with them, and I didn't want to do that. So what I would do is I would download a pocket query and I would convert it to this ebook format, and I'd upload it to my Palm Pilot, so I'd have the description of all the caches available to me on the Palm Pilot. And so then when the My Finds query came out, I thought, well, that's great. We can look at the My Finds query and we can do what physicists do, which is do statistics on it. And so I wrote this program that would read your My Finds pocket query, and it would show you a bunch of different things, like how many miles you traveled and all this other stuff. And one of the things I came up with, this idea for a grid of the number of different terrains and difficulties you had found. And so it printed it out. It was a text printout. It wasn't anything fancy at all. And Kalia saw that, and he thought, wow, that would make a fun challenge. Find them all, which nobody, as far as I know, had done by that time. And so he made this challenge cache that has since become relatively legendary. So the challenge idea wasn't mine, but the idea of sorting the statistics by difficulty and terrain, which seems obvious in retrospect, that was my main contribution to that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So you wrote a number of ways for people to, like, how popular were your scripts? Like when you analyzed your statistics, when you put those together, like how many people used that?
I didn't really keep track. A lot of people used them. They were fairly popular. I had this GPX to HTML script that would turn your GPX file into a bunch of linked pages that contained all the information about the cache. That one was pretty popular. Lil Devil, who we talked about just recently, he also wrote a script that did very, very similar things, also in Perl. And that was before I had discovered things. And then sort of at that time, there were a lot of us sort of working on ideas for how to make geocaching better. And so one of the things that I wrote into GPX to HTML was you could have a separate file that had the coordinates of all the puzzles that you had solved, and then it would change the coordinates of the GPX. It would spit out a new GPX file with those corrected coordinates, and it would also put that stuff into the HTML. And so that was the genesis of the idea of saving a database with your corrected coordinates in it. I can't claim that was a great idea because it's pretty blaringly obvious, but
someone had to do it first.
That's right. That was right. And so at the time, I wrote a lot of stuff, and the geocaching community was a little bit more tight knit than it is now. I'm not going to say that it's bad now; it's just bigger, and we would share a lot of stuff out there. And so I have another program that a lot of people use called FizzyCalc, which was originally called GeoCalc. And I wrote this with this by now ancient way of doing things. It's only Windows, and I am terrible. I am a truly horrible GUI writer. I love writing algorithms. I love doing the math part. That's my happy space. But I actually took the time to try and write sort of a GUI that you could enter things in, and it would show you different. It would convert coordinates and things like that. And so I wrote that, and then I got a threat of a lawsuit from some other company that had a product called GeoCalc. So I renamed it FizzyCalc, and that one hasn't changed in several years because it uses a pretty outdated framework for doing the GUI part.
We've got FizzyCalc fans in the chat room.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad people still use it. I learned a ton writing that program about geodesy, which is how you make measurements on the Earth, and about I've taught myself a lot about how to think about directions on the Earth and things like that. So that's really fun. FizzyCalc uses for the algorithm that I use for calculating distances and azimuths. It uses an algorithm called the Vincenti method, and the Vincenti method is it's based on a series expansion of the ellipsoidal distance, and it's good to about 2 centimeters per 100 miles or so. So I figured that's good enough. So, because of course the surface of the Earth isn't actually flat like that. So that's the other thing I did that got a lot of attention back in the day.
Yeah, and so if anybody wants to try that, where would they go to find that FizzyCalc?
FizzyCalc is, you can go to fizzymagic.net and the link is there. And FizzyCalc, I apologize in advance. It's a .exe file for Windows. I don't have, if I were more ambitious, I would have written a version of it in Python, which is my language of choice right now. And do a new GUI and made everything work well. Actually, I've written so much in Python of puzzle type solving stuff and geodesy type stuff. Like, so if you have 3 points in the distances to a common point, it'll find that point. It'll do all those kinds of things. But the problem with Python, of course, is it's an interpreted language. It's not compiled, so you don't get an executable file. And the other problem with it is that so you'd have to have a Python interpreter, although you can some people do package the interpreter in with them, but it's just harder to redistribute. It's harder for everybody to be able to use. But if anybody's interested in seeing that, of course, they can always contact me. I'm always willing to share stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot. You have a lot of knowledge of doing all of that, again, because you're in physics. And,
that's right.
So you've got a lot of history there.
So the math is very interesting. That's right.
Yeah.
And then I spent a while. FizzyCalc now has, the last thing I added to FizzyCalc rather is the ability to change between datums, and that turns out to be an interesting mathematical problem. But it
Can't
will
imagine
do
the mathematics behind some of that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Kealia was the cache owner who placed the very famous, well-rounded cacher, the Fizzy Challenge in California.
Right.
And that was in April of 2007. The reason why this particular challenge is famous, not only because it's the first Fizzy challenge, but at this point, you were allowed to have date restrictions. So you had to complete a Fizzy, but all your finds had to be published before this cache. So no new caches would qualify. And you had to find them, previous finds do count. Yeah, so you don't have to start at zero. So it's just basically all of the, you can only finish a Fizzy from caches that were published before that challenge cache. You can't do that anymore.
Right. There's some interesting considerations for that. So I would have thought that if I charted a challenge, the thing I would think of doing first is not allowing past finds to count, but only, you'd have to start the challenge, everybody together. But he was concerned about people making new caches and then just mislabeling the difficulty and terrain. And so he didn't want that to happen. So he wanted to lock in the difficulty terrains of existing caches so that it would actually mean that you found caches that were rated that for no reason other than that was the best rating. Since then, there are a lot of caches that have been hidden that are sort of intended to be grid fillers. And that was not true at all. So I knew he was going to hide this. And so a week before he released this challenge, I went out and hit a 4.5/5 cache, which is right now it's well, I hope it's there actually. It's a bottle floating about 15 feet down underneath the surface of a nearby lake. And so there was a puzzle to solve to get the coordinates, and then you had to go to the lake, and there's a cliff, or almost a cliff right above it. So you kind of have to go out in a kayak or a boat or something and then dive down into the lake to find it. And the lake visibility is usually about 5 feet. So it's one of those things you can't see it from the surface. You have to dive down and be in the right place. So that one, I actually continue maintaining that today, even though it's a pain because fishermen snag the line and various things happen. But I maintain it today because it's one of the few Fizzy qualifiers with that particular terrain and difficulty, and I hit it with that terrain difficulty specifically because I knew there would be no more opportunities for new caches that would qualify for some of these more difficult things to find for the Fizzy challenge. So, of course, that makes me feel responsible for keeping it alive forever, which is, whatever.
No small task.
That's right. That's right.
Now,
So
it is
you
possible.
knew this was coming out.
Yes.
Did you know it was named for you?
No, I had no idea. No, we had a bulletin board for the Bay Area geocaches at the time, and we were all sort of talking about the idea of how to build this challenge. And Kalia came up with the idea, and so because I knew he had this in the works, that's why I hit that cache. And there are a couple of the nearby caches that also were hidden by people, specifically to get certain fairly difficult to find difficulties and terrains. Yes. I felt constrained to make it an actual 4.5/5 cache. I don't know how constrained I would be today, but certainly we were back then.
Yeah, for sure. Now, it is possible to find qualifying caches for that California Fizzy. All you need to do now with the advanced search is under the place date, just say under before, change the year to 2007 and month to April and 6th. Was it 6th? 7th. April 7th, I think it was.
6th.
6th. On or before April 6th, that's fine. So change the place date and then hit search, and it should be a worldwide search, which you can then map and drop that in here. So for those listening, I'm just pulling up on the screen share an image of the mapped results of qualifying caches for the California Fizzy. And is that right? That seems like a lot. Okay, it is going to be a lot of results. There are some difficulty and terrains that are extremely rare, and I'm trying to remember which ones they might be. But it's a fun one to do because you might have thousands of caches around you, but that's reduced down to probably hundreds tops within a doable region.
Right. So over the years, multiple times we have asked Kalia to relax that date restriction because it seemed like a lot of people, you could move it up a couple of years and it wouldn't make much difference. But he has really chosen not to do that, and I respect his choice there.
Yeah, and I think that's what kind of makes that challenge unique is that, we can't have date restrictions now, but that's a grandfathered one, and being the first challenge, it's something that most people can certainly shoot for. And I think, as long as there's at least one qualifier for every DT, then it's still doable.
Right.
It's kind of like the Jasmer challenge. They get harder and harder as those initial first few months.
And that makes us hungrier for them.
It does. I agree.
I respect that too, not changing that date. It's a classic.
Yeah. One thing we like to joke about is that it's not hard enough to just qualify for the challenge. The hardest part is going to be the last person to qualify for the challenge. Because nobody knows when they're going to be the last person, right? Like if you qualify and you find it and you sign it, and then the next day, the last qualifying cache is archived, you're the last person who can qualify for the challenge.
Yeah, Rich points out that the toughest one only has 30 left. So
what is the toughest one? The toughest combo?
Yeah, Rich, is that my 4.55, or is that a lot of terrain 4.5s tend to be difficult as well because people don't tend to hide 4.5 terrains.
Yeah, and I'm thinking there's probably somebody who's compiled a list of all the qualifying caches on the DT grid so we can see how many are left for them.
Yeah.
Rich Reagan.
Also interesting, he says that last he checked, it's possible to complete it solely within California.
Yeah.
Yes.
I believe that would be possible.
Yeah, we have a wide variety of caches in California. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
And that's the key thing to remember. Like no new caches will come out to fill up some of those holes.
Yeah, what you what you search is what you get, and
if you've got
going to get smaller.
If you're in a region that has a wide range of difficulties and terrains, then chances are you probably could qualify just in your region. I know when I first started, I saw the we have a similar challenge here from Tequila, and so he called it the Tequila 81, and it was in July of 2009, 2007, one of those years, and same concept, date restriction, all caches up to the published date, but you had to find, you could only qualify with caches found after the cache was published. So pretty much everybody started on the same level. And I remember that was my first year caching, and I saw that, and that's like, okay, I've got to qualify. I've got to try to qualify for this so I can find it. And at that point, I was doing a little more traveling around Canada and the US. So the first thing that I searched for on vacation were qualifying caches for that challenge, because some of those DTs were super rare. And so yeah, it definitely gives you targets to search for.
Right. And the initial version of the Washington Fizzy Challenge required all the caches to be found in Washington State.
Oh, just in the state, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's still there or not. It's hopeless. I'll never get that. But that's how it was.
Now, the other thing that we noticed on this listing, at the top, it says the cache is temporarily unavailable. The cache is in the very heart of the local CZU lightning complex fire, and I don't know how and when the area will be open. When the area will be open to check on this cache or even access the area for that matter. Do you know what the current status is of the area around this cache?
So it's in Big Basin State Park, which is down near Santa Cruz. And Big Basin has been closed for at least a year.
Oh, wow.
The state park has. It's about a 1.5 mile hike to get to the cache. The cache itself is located in some rocks. So it's probably 40, 50 feet from the nearest tree. So we are hopeful that the cache did not actually burn. But it was right in the middle of that fire, and the state park has been closed. I don't know whether you're allowed to get into the state park, via trails, or whether it's really closed. Rich actually would know that. He knows all kinds of stuff.
So was this this year's fire that was of concern, or last year's as well?
It was this year's fire. It was the one in August. It was the CZU. So we had a lightning storm that started three rather large fires in the area, and this was one of them.
Yeah, because it looks like there's still quite a number of disabled caches in that region.
Yeah, they really ought to all be disabled because the park is closed. I'm optimistic that after about a year or so, if we get through the winter and the mudslides don't go nuts, that we'll be able to start going back maybe a year from now, next fall, that it will reopen. Yeah. I'm sure they will be really paranoid about fires next summer there as well.
Yeah.
So it's too bad.
Well,
and Rich has also answered us that difficulty 5, terrain 3.5, it has only 30 left.
In the world. Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's the most difficult combination.
That's not what I would have expected. That's interesting.
Difficulty 5, terrain 3.5.
And that's for the California Fizzy. So there you go. There's like I think that's the oldest active official challenge cache. So if you're looking for something to qualify for, keep that one in mind.
We're extremely lucky in my area because I think it was within the next year that the Jasmer Challenge was hidden as well. And it's only it's about, as a crow flies, maybe 15 miles from the Fizzy Challenge. So we're lucky to have both of those classic challenges in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Bring a lot of people out to that.
Geocaching destination.
Yeah. That's exactly right. Yes.
So now you are involved with writing scripts for Project GC. So you've kind of adopted the whole challenge checker mentality and all that.
Yeah, so many challenges I don't find particularly interesting. I'm trying to come up with ideas for new and innovative challenges that can be done that take a little bit more programming to to do. I'm working on one now, which we talked about a year or two ago in the forums. That is, the idea is that the convex hull of your finds needs to cover more than 10% of the surface of the Earth, and the convex hull is the largest convex thing. Assume you're connecting points with lines. If you imagine a set of lines that all your finds would fall within that set of lines, that's what's known as a convex hull. And so the question is, how do you, so the idea would be that, what fraction of the Earth's surface have you kind of covered with your finds? And, 10% turns out to be a lot, because you will not, people generally will not tend to have done 4 really far separated caches. You won't have one at 35 north and another at 35 south, and then going the other way around the Earth. Because of the way the convex hull works, of course, you can't go more than 180 degrees in longitude, because then it becomes shorter to go the other way. So 50% is the most you could even in principle have. So
basically you're talking about connecting the outside, like if you were to put all of your finds on a map, draw a polygon around all of your finds, and then that area of the Earth coverage.
That's right. And I think, I mean, it's incredibly geeky, and I understand that. That's me. But I think it has that indefinable style points that I talked about at the beginning. And I'm interested in other kinds of. I haven't thought of any really clever challenges recently. One of the ones that I enjoyed doing the very most was inspired by a cache I saw in southern New Mexico, which is where you had to have found caches where you climbed 100,000 feet to reach your caches. So you can only do 1 cache per hike. And you got the starting point on the trail was the beginning, and where the cache was at the end, either up or down. You could store that height differential as a, and then you'd sum all those up, and you would, if you had to reach 100,000 feet.
See, and I think that's a good example of a challenge that, to my knowledge, that wouldn't be publishable now post-moratorium,
right?
Because it's fairly subjective. Because somebody might say, well, I started way down at the sea level, down at the bottom of the mountain. Somebody else may have started halfway up. So how do you calculate or know for a fact what the actual altitude change is?
Right. So if people published trailheads more consistently, then you would really be able to do this using the Google Maps API or something like that. Which is I think that's one of the things that we lost in the conversion to the new challenges, was the ability to do challenges like that are still quantifiable, but that you can't program easily. So
I think the closest that we get to that is just total altitude. So the coordinates of the cache, the altitude above sea level is retrievable, and I believe that is usable in the post-moratorium challenges. Yeah.
That's right. So that was actually one of my favorite challenges, is the one feet in the sand, head in the clouds, something like that, where you have to go from someplace between -0 to -500 all the way up to 14,000 feet in 500-foot increments. And I took a trip to Colorado to finish that off on Pikes Peak, as a matter of fact. So
nice.
That was a lot of fun. That's the kind of challenge that appeals to me, because it feels like it has some style associated with it. I've done geocaches from 250 feet below sea level all the way up to 14,000 feet. That feels stylish to me.
And I think it seems a little more satisfying on screen as well, because you can get a grid of those bands and you can see how many qualify in each of them, and it's really easy to to qualify and and search for qualifiers. Now, you said that there was a special Fizzy, an ultimate Fizzy that was published recently.
Yes. So that's Alamogo. So Alamogo started caching about 3 months after I did. He was someplace in May or June of 2002. And so Lee is a short guy with an unending supply of energy, and we cached together. He lived in Alamo, which is very close to me at the time. He now lives in Nevada, and we would do a lot of caching together. I still remember the hike we did up in the Mount Diablo State Park. We left the car, and we went down and found a bunch of caches. It was quite a hike, a lot of elevation, and then the sun was starting to go down, and it was 5:30 or 6 or something, and Lee said, there's one more cache. It's only 3/8 of a mile away, and I looked at my primitive at the time topo map on my GPS, and I said, yeah, it's 3/8 of a mile away, but this thing shows that it's down 1,000 feet. And he said, there's no way. That's not possible. And so sure enough, this cache was down 1,000 feet, and we ended up having to bushwhack back up. It got dark. We had, amongst 5 of us, we had one flashlight, and we kind of stumbled back to our car at the top of Mount Diablo well after dark to find a ranger sitting there waiting for us because the park was closed, and he threatened to fine us some huge amount of money, and Lee managed to talk him out of it, so he gets credit for that. that's a good Alamogo story. So anyway, Alamogo and I, he hit a challenge called the Ultimate Fizzy Challenge, which at the time was the most difficult. He had to have found Fizzy challenges in 5 states, and yes, he is the Sheldon Cooper of geocaching. I am, I guess. Yeah, that's right. So anyway, so Lee hid this Ultimate Fizzy Challenge in my front yard, and it has probably cost me about $150 in sprinkler heads because you think I'm kidding, but I'm not. But what's really wonderful about it is every once in a while somebody will come up and ring the doorbell and introduce themselves as having, and it's really a fun thing for me. So I don't mind at all. The sprinkler heads are worth it. Now you can show that page if you want.
Yeah. So what was the qualification for that?
You need to have done 5 Fizzy challenges in 5 separate states. I believe that's the only thing.
Yeah. For all of you obsessed with Ultimate Challenge caches, this one is for you with a special prize at the end. All you need to do to qualify is to have completed and logged online 5 Fizzy challenges, well-rounded cacher, Area 81, Fizzy, etc., in at least 5 states, provinces, countries prior to your find on this log. And the cache is at the posted coordinates.
That's right.
Straightforward.
So now everybody knows where my house is. They can come and rob me in the night. That's fine. I have dogs. Yes.
Found in January. So it's not as... Well, it is also a 5/5. It's funny because Fizzy challenges, some of these older ones are like 5 difficulty, 5 terrain, but we can't rate anything higher than that. So they get harder and harder, but they're still just 5
just 5. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's absolutely right. But the Fizzy challenge for me was a 5/5. So it took me, I don't know when I logged it. I think I logged it in 2012 or something. It took quite a while before I finished my first one. I'm not a prolific finder at all. I'm only slightly over. I've been doing it almost 20 years, and I'm only over 10,000 finds. So, but that's the challenges have actually been pretty interesting for me to do. I really appreciate both kinds of challenges. The challenge types that require you to go out, set out, and do something. But I also enjoy challenges that required me to do, some database programming on my own finds. Which by the way, I always keep a parallel database of my finds from the one that geocaching keeps for us because I started early and I just have never been able to stop. Yeah. And I actually know my cache to cache distance because I record the location at which I found the cache, even for multis and stuff like that. So I really know my cache to cache distance and don't have any things like, there's a cache someplace that's like at the bottom of in the middle of the ocean that has true coordinates, but those things don't count. So I still do that for myself.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed the mining my data to see what I would have to do. Recent challenges that I've done have been a birthday challenge, finding a cache on its birthday for 1 through 12 years. That's good. I've enjoyed doing, obviously, just finished the Jasmine challenge last year. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you said where did you finish that at?
Potter's Pond
That's
in Utah, which is a spectacular location, and that's a really great cache, and I can't recommend it highly enough. It's wonderful. I have still not done the cache that Rich was talking about down in Southern California, which is the oldest cache in California. I think it's called Phil's Cache, and I haven't done that one yet. So I went down to San Diego this year, but it just didn't feel right to go off and do that one. So
do you have a map of the oldest caches in each of the states? You're trying to knock them off the list?
No, I haven't been doing that actually. No, my caching career has been highlighted by serendipity. So about a month after I started caching, I took a trip to Georgia for work, and I went and I found this cache, the nearest cache to my hotel in Roswell, Georgia, turned out to be one of the ape caches.
Oh, wow.
And so I completely by accident found an ape cache like within a month of starting geocaching, which I thought is pretty hilarious if you think about it. And so and I've, a fair number of things like that have happened where I find these caches and they turn out to be people later, 15 years later, think they're fantastic. So that's a lot of fun.
That is great.
As you cache longer, you need to figure out ways to keep it interesting. And for me, as I was telling them earlier, urban traditionals don't do it for me. Unless it has a lot of favorite points and it's a gadget cache, something like that, it's fantastic. But for the most part, mostly I do puzzles and where it goes and stuff now.
I think
I really enjoy original puzzles and original gadget caches.
Yeah, and we tend to find there's a slight difference in cache styles when you go from out in nature into urban centers. Because I remember reading somewhere how you usually see how people start putting traditionals in some city area, and over time they slowly change into puzzles and premium member only and gadget caches and stuff. Because you can't just hide a container somewhere in the city and have it last for that long. So yeah, like you've got to really have kind of a puzzly mentality if you want to start finding caches in the city.
That's absolutely true. And I think that challenge caches that challenge you to get out into nature and do some of the more interesting hikes and adventures to find them in order to qualify for the challenge is actually a good use of an urban cache. I don't mind that the challenge cache is not terribly difficult to find or it's a boring container, as long as the process of getting there is interesting.
Right.
And it's very rare for someone to have stayed involved in geocaching as long as I have. I have several friends who have, but usually the lifetime is about 3 to 5 years. And then you've kind of done all your caches that are near you. The new ones all feel the same, and people, you have to, I believe that this is actually a criticism I have of geocaching.com is I don't feel that they've really worked hard to try and do customer retention for long periods of time. They don't really, in my opinion, they don't value the older customers. But then again, I am an older customer, so I would say that, wouldn't I? But challenges are a really good way to keep yourself interested and to keep yourself doing stuff. And I found them a lot of fun for that purpose.
Absolutely. It gives us trips to take and ideas to plan and people to collaborate with. You're right.
As long as some of those creative Premoratorium challenges are still around, then we still have some of those challenges for us nerdy type who like to do all of the bookkeeping and tracking details that aren't in statistics, like text-based names and owners and all that stuff. I found some of those to be really creative, like just themes.
Actually Alamogel had a time when he was putting out what I call combination challenges, where you had to fit a set of things into a set of constraints. And so you had to have 7 different kinds of caches that had been found in 5 different states, and all these things. The ones I don't miss from that day are the find 23 caches that have the word mudflap in the title.
I think that was kind of a way around people creating a list and you saying you have to find all of these caches first before finding this challenge cache, because you can't have a list of specific caches to find in case any of them go away. You can't qualify. But if you say because we've got loads of cemetery caches around here. So we've got challenges for caches with rest and in the title. And there's one, I think there was one for 30 caches with rest and in, and a couple more where the last one is at least 100 with rest and in. So you got to find 100 caches, not just cemetery caches, but rest and in series caches. And it allows people to place those same named series caches of their own anywhere. So you can't say it has to be placed by a specific person. So it's not a specific series, but it gave you a theme. It was just kind of frustrating because sometimes there were cemeteries with different names and they don't qualify for the other one.
Right. So Gary in the comments talks about the obnoxious challenge from Alamogul. Yeah, that one was that was a really that was a fun programming exercise for me, actually. So, but for somebody who's not a complete raving nerd, it probably wouldn't have been as much fun. So I appreciate that.
What did you have to do for that? I thought he was describing the challenge, but this is a challenge name, obnoxious challenge.
Yes, it is. I'll try and find it just a second. I think I found it. So
yeah, the owner of that one has got to know that whatever the qualifiers is, nobody's going to enjoy it.
Okay, so that one is GC 4461G. You might want to bring that up. It's yeah, so the requirements are that you had to find 7 caches that each start with a different letter used in the word obnoxious. So you had to do all 7 letters in obnoxious, 7 different cache types, 7 different years being hidden, 7 days of the week you had to find them by 7 different cache owners and in 7 different counties. That's
quite a matrix.
It is. And I've sat on the couch many nights and done searching through my finds, trying to figure this out. I don't shy away from that. So those ones like that. What do we call bookkeeping challenges? I'll do it. If they still exist, I'll do it.
So now here's the other strategy for some of these old ones. If Project GC doesn't show a checker with their add-on, somebody else might have created one and used the output in their log. So if you scroll back past, you might be able to find a checker that already exists. No. There might not be a checker for this one.
I would guess that there probably isn't, but it could be done in principle. But it's actually a difficult challenge. It's a constraints problem, and you have to. It would take a fair amount of Project GC CPU time to do it, so they may not be enthusiastic about that.
Well, we've got other. So with one of my challenges, I actually wrote SQL scripts to determine qualifiers. So it might be possible to write scripts elsewhere for people to use if they have the tools. Yes,
that's what I did. I wrote a script for that one to find the answer.
Yeah.
So now I don't know. You can answer a question for me. Are lonely cache challenges still allowed under the new cache guidelines? If they're not, that's one of the biggest losses for the new cache guidelines, because lonely cache challenges have really changed my geocaching a lot, because I really love going out and finding caches that nobody has found for a while.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think I don't believe it is because if I recall it, Project GC doesn't have access to be able to tell when the previous log to your find was published.
Project GC will actually do that for you now, but it's not that accurate.
Rich is saying no because it depends on other cachers' logs.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I actually, somebody was mentioning that in the forum, and I did. No, it was on Facebook. Somebody mentioned that, and I just took the GSAC and wrote a couple of SQL queries that would inform that, like tell you what your lonely the lonely period for those caches that you have found on. But again, the problem exists that you have to have all the prior logs to all of your finds. That's so right. the first step is you've got to download your MyFinds Pocket Query, and then you've got to run a script to determine, for this particular one, it was 1 year lonely. So you've got to run a script that'll give you just the list of caches that there's like a 1 year gap between the logs that you do have. And then you've got to run those through the API to get all of the logs up to your find, and then run the script again, and then it can analyze the actual gap between your log and the previous find or publish.
That's right.
So it is possible to do, but it's tedious.
I completely believe that. And of course, a trick that I use in my own script is that if somebody else finds it the same day I did, and it's been a lonely cache, the probability that they were with me when I found it is very high, and so it still counts. But and so I actually break those out and look at them by hand to make sure that there's nobody that found it a few hours before I did.
Yeah.
Generally, I think that's why most of the wording is just it has to be found prior to the date that you were there. Yeah, because the chance, like, unless it's a really popular cache, the chances of it being lonely are slim, and the chances of somebody also finding it on the same day and it being a qualifier, it's not worth even worrying about that.
That's right. But lonely caches have a certain style to them as well that that appeals to my little thing I talked about at the beginning, that sense of style. And the challenges for doing them actually really changed how I do caching. So now when I go someplace on a road trip, I'm looking for lonely caches because those are generally a lot of fun to find.
Yeah, it's like there's a reason why it's lonely. It's either really hard to get to.
A lot of times, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Although in the Bay Area, there are a lot of lonely puzzles because a puzzle comes out, everybody solves it, and everybody who can solves it within the first couple weeks, and then it sort of has a long tail. The puzzles in our area.
Yeah, and those are the ones that tend to, after a long gap of not being found, suddenly a large number of people all find it together. Because somebody either helps somebody or somebody leads a group and, hey, I've already found this one, but yeah, we can go and find it.
We'll show you where it's at. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Well, it is almost 9 o'clock and we've got to get to our fun game.
All right, go for it, guys.
We are going to move on to the Wheel of Challenges, and we really need to get some kind of a sting for that.
Right.
So this is a little game we play each month where one viewer is selected to face off against the Wheel of Challenges. And when I say viewer, I mean people who are tuning in live to the chat either on YouTube or Facebook or Periscope. And you'll have a chance to win the grand prize, which is a 1-year membership to Project GC. So to enter, you need to send an email with a subject containing SPINME, SPINME, to with your geocaching username, because that needs to be checked on Project GC, and the answer to the following question. The first verified user gets the wheel. Your profile will be checked live on Project GC, so if you have privacy concerns, you might not want to play. And if you qualify, you win. So here is your question. Make sure you've got your email program open, and I'll give you a couple of seconds to put a recipient in there. But so hopefully this isn't too difficult. Your question is, what 2 geocache properties does a Fizzy grid display? This shouldn't be a hard trivia question.
Shouldn't be.
I think the answer has been given quite a few times already tonight. And we will be watching for emails coming in live. And the wheel is getting ready. Let's bring it up. Need to get some sound effects too. It is ready to spin. So this wheel is composed of quite a few numbers of challenges ranging from 1 difficulty to 5. And it is a mystery which one is which. Let's see. We've got some people coming in. We have a first. Oh, they're all coming in. Oh, they're coming in quick. Okay, let's. 1, 2, 3. we will go with Terra Viators. I know he corrected me last time. Terraviators?
Terraviators.
Terraviators.
Like aviators, but Terra.
Yeah, he's been around roughly forever.
Roughly.
They have correctly said it is the DT, or difficulty in terrain grid. So that is the username. We will try Terraviators. I don't know why I have such a difficulty saying it. Okay, well, let's put you up against the wheel. You're going to hit that spin button.
Love the sound.
We do what we can.
GC 9119D, 31 dates of tree climbs. And what is that challenge? That is a new one that was just published in October in Ontario from Carnegie Rule. It is a 5 difficulty challenge where you must have found one cache that has a tree climbing attribute on each of the 31 days of the month, 1 to 31. They don't have to be in the same month, just each of those dates, 1 to 31, has to have a tree climb cache find on it. It has a Project GC checker. It is a 5 difficulty.
Oh, I know I don't qualify. I haven't climbed a tree for a cache in years. There aren't enough of them.
Okay, so we will put in. I know I can spell it right.
You know, I think they have a reasonable chance of doing this, because I think maybe not.
Does he qualify? Checking does not qualify.
Oh, you have to climb more trees there.
We do have quite a few tree climbs, but missing a few still. Anywhere in the world. So the results. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So it doesn't show the dates that you still need, but you've got quite a few. Just need 4, 5, 8, 10, 15th, 17th. Yeah, just a few scattered days. See, the nice thing about this challenge is you could complete it within a month.
Mm-hmm.
If it's got 31 days and you don't need 31. So
I like seeing, that's another thing I like. When I run a checker and I see that I'm somewhat close, then it lights a fire in me. I can do this. I've already come this far. I can do it.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. That happens to everybody, I think. If you're like just a few away, you just got to do them, and that OCD kicks in.
It does.
Especially if it's something that you love to do, like tree climbs. So sadly, unfortunately, Terraviators did not qualify for this month.
Or Terra Vaders, Terra Visitors, Tierra Violators, whatever you want to say.
I like that last one. I think I'm going to stick with that. I think
that's something else.
Yes.
Well, there is still another chance, because we also do a monthly challengers little game where every month we give a congratulatory shout out to listeners who email us proof of qualifying and logging a challenge cache during the prior month. Anyone who sends an email to challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com, including the cache code, GC code that you find, a photo if you like, for that month, will be entered for a prize giveaway. And this month's prize, it's a nice big announcement. Unfortunately, I can't show it yet, but somebody else can. We have geocoins.
A geocoin for the podcast.
Yeah.
Very nice coin.
Number and show the back, because some people may recognize this coin. It is a Geocache Talk Network geocoin. So all of the podcasts in Geocache Talk Network have their own special geocoin, and Challenge Talk now has our own.
Yeah, I've got a whole nice new collection of them. It's great. Stay tuned for how to get some for yourself.
That's approximately awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to tune into Geocache Talk to hear about our plans for getting those coins out.
So that's the prize for this month. So we're going to highlight a few interesting challenges that people have sent in just over the past month. First off, we have one coming in from Butterfly Girl. It is GC8Y6KW, the I Love the Night Life Challenge. And it is right here. This cache, you just have to find 100 caches with the recommended at night attribute. So for the most part, I mean, that would encourage you to get night caches, generally. I think there are some that might have recommended at night just because you could do it in daylight, but it's more fun at night. But I think the intent, the spirit of this cache is night caching. So I thought that was kind of a neat one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is obviously one that can easily be done post-moratorium rules. We have another one in from Gary of the GBs, who has sent us one called the name is interesting. It's a Red Baron Challenge. It's a Romeo Bravo BABBB Red Baron Challenge, not the 20. Tongue twister. Romeo Bravo Red Baron, be a better benchmark buddy, not the 20 challenge. Think of the song 20. I have no idea what this song is. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 or more. The Bloody Red Baron was rolling out the score. This challenge requires not 10, not 20, not 30, but 365 days. The requirements for this are kind of intense. You have to find 11 of all of the non-traditional cache types. You have to find a minimum number of each type to fill up the 365-day grid. So you have to find a cache on every day of the 365 days using non-traditional caches, but you can have up to 40 traditional caches.
But you need a lot of other types. I ran my checker. I don't qualify for this. But it doesn't, I need to figure out why. I didn't look that far.
Yeah. Because basically you need to have one mega event, one webcam, 5 or more Waragos, 5 or more Cedo events, cash in, trash out, 10 or more virtuals, 15 or more Earth caches, 20 or more letterbox, 25 or more multis, 30 or more events, and 35 or more unknown caches, and up to 40 traditionals. So if you've already filled your grid once, you might qualify, but it depends on how many traditionals you found. And I ran it just earlier this afternoon, and I was like, yes, qualify. Not going to find it, but qualified.
So well
There's
done,
a nice
Gary.
little twist on the 1 year grid.
And is this the right Gary who says, and don't forget to mention how to find the final?
That is the Gary. So the final, let's see, I saw it somewhere around here, the information for it. Yeah, the cache is not placed at a specific page coordinates, To find the location, look for all nearby benchmarks to find the location of benchmark number Q428/MK2132. So he's also put the cache actually in the additional waypoints as a final location, but the fun for this one is trying to find the benchmark. And I suppose at that point, that's where the cache is hidden. If you look at it on the map, it is
a bonus benchmark.
Posted coordinates are right in the middle of the interchange.
Yeah, don't go there.
Yeah, don't go play in traffic. So that's a nice little twist.
Oh, Gary says the container is in the benchmark. I just found one last month for the Geo Challenge of the month that had a lid. I wonder if that's kind of the same thought.
Yeah, because some of them, the lid of the benchmark, sometimes they are loose.
Yeah, this lid, it was a hinge and it opened up, and it was protecting a rod in the ground, and the rod was the benchmark.
Yeah, we have 1 or 2 like that in town just here. I saw that at a corner of a sidewalk. There's like a little cover. You never think about lifting one of the lids, but yeah, if you lift it up out of curiosity and look inside, there's a little pole with a benchmark inside.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's a good theme. I like that.
Oh, we have the wrong banner up. What is the GC code for this?
Whoops. Yes, there we go. GC73KFN Romeo Bravo BABBB Red Baron Challenge, not the 20. Long challenge names. So next up we have one from AWOL GZ C8ZZF5, ZZF5, 20 Years of Geocaching Challenge. Now, if you've completed your Jasmer, you don't qualify for this necessarily. For this challenge, you have to find at least one cache, at least one cache in 2001, at least 2 caches hidden in 2002, 3 in 2003, all the way up to 20 caches hidden in 2020. I would think the last maybe 2/3 of that is pretty easy, but that first third could be pretty hard.
Could be. I like it. I'm curious.
The challenge for me would be the 2020, actually.
Right? Did you get out this year? Yeah.
Well, no, it has to be hidden this year. So it's not just get out caching.
Oh, yeah. So did other people get out? Yeah.
Right. How active have people been hiding new caches this year? Yeah. So it's a nice little twist. I've seen the Baker's Dozen challenges that are similar to that one, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 13, or Fibonacci sequence. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, etc. But this is a nice kind of a simple twist on the Jasmer, adding a little more challenge.
Yeah.
And next up, we have one from Curious KDB, who sent in GC4HWFK, the Fizzy Challenge All-Terrain of Challenge Caches. Now, see, this one, when was it published? It was published in 2013. So it's Premoratorium. And this was, I kind of am interested about this. Okay, so you could publish challenges that are like mini Fizzy challenges, where you have to have a line or a column of a specific difficulty or terrain. So there are a series of mini Fizzy challenges or Fizzy mini challenges for terrains 1 through 5. This challenge requires you to have found each of those 9 caches.
9 caches plus the challenge placed for finding those.
Yes. So obviously
all
you
those
wouldn't be able to
caches
log
plus 9 challenges to find this challenge.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to log those mini challenges unless you qualified. So you basically have to have a Fizzy grid, but you have to complete the Fizzy grid and find those caches, log them found.
Yeah.
So that I know. See, the reason why I question that is because it's requiring finds on existing caches. And I didn't think that was even possible pre-moratorium.
And I'm curious, and Curious KDB's in the chat. Can you answer, what's kind of the radius of those challenge caches?
Like how far
spread out? Yeah.
I think DT challenges. There might be a bookmark list.
So unfortunately, this challenge cannot be completed because at least one of those mini challenges is archived.
Oh.
So I went to one of the pages just to see. My belief was that for each one of those, you have to have filled out that entire row, that column of the Fizzy grid. So if you find all 9, then you will have finished your Fizzy grid. But
looking at Curious KDB's find log, it looks like they haven't found the one that was archived, but they were allowed to log it as found anyway.
Oh, that's good. That has to be. So, and it says they're all within 20 to 30 miles of each other.
Yeah, and that kind of makes sense if it's a series. It's a good way to encourage people or give people a way to work on a Fizzy grid and still get finds or qualifications along the way. Actually, there's 2 of them that are archived. Terrain 3.5 and Terrain 1.5. Yeah, interesting. So I thought that was a little discussion point.
Yes. I love hearing what other people are finding. It's very interesting what's out there.
Yeah, how people think outside the box and whatnot. So Curious KDB also sent in GC18AWE, New Hampshire's high, low, north, south, east, and west challenge. So this is a 4.5 difficulty challenge where you've got to find a cache. Basically, the highest cache, the lowest cache, most north, south, east, and west point of New Hampshire, or closest to those points.
I like it. I love map-based challenges.
The highest point of New Hampshire, there's, at least according to this listing, there's 3 caches at at or near the summit of Mount Washington, which is the highest point. So you got to find the closest cache to the summit of Mount Washington to qualify for the high point. And I guess that is actually a good qualifier, because as those get archived, then the qualifier
changes.
shifts down.
It changes with time. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's not a list of these specific 3 caches. It's just the closest cache to the summit. And the low point is within 0.5 miles of the ocean and less than 100 feet of elevation. Makes sense. I guess because the low point of New Hampshire would be ocean or sea level. So within half a mile of the ocean and that elevation. North, south, east, and west. So yeah, I thought that was kind of neat. Gets you traveling around New Hampshire. So of those, not just those 5, but a whole bunch, we can't highlight every single challenge cache. So of everybody who has sent in their challenge qualifiers for October, we have randomly chosen a winner. And this month's winner of the very first Challenge Talk Geocoin is AWOL.
AWOL.
With their 20 years of geocaching.
Well done.
Awesome. Congratulations. We will get in touch with you for how to get that to you as soon as possible. And remember, for next month, if you are listening live or listening in your favorite podcast player, to enter for next month, send your email in before next month's show to, let me get that back up, challengetalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, with the GC code and pictures if you like. That's always a fun thing. So one other thing I always like to highlight is the one challenge that one of the last challenges that was published before some significant rule changes, and that is my Iron Man bingo challenge. That is a bingo grid of challenges that are all about streaking. And where did the image? Come on. Oh, the image isn't showing because of some changes to the way that HQ is showing embedded images. So there is the image, the bingo grid of streaks. So each square is a streak of a specific type of cache property, whether it's a rating or an attribute or statuses. Like there's one for having 10 days of found a lonely cache of 7 days or more. A rating one where you've got to find 5 days in a row of 5 difficulty, 5 terrain caches. And the center one, to round it all out, is 100 days consecutive geocaching. It's a tough one to finish, and it was published before rules that that disallowed streaks like that and date restrictions. And so I still need to call. I'm going to have to edit this so that the images work again. Oh,
yeah.
But that is GC3D5EB, the Iron Man Bingo Challenge. And I like to highlight if anybody else has been working on it or qualified for it. And there is one new person. The Bushman has said he's working on it. Stay tuned. But I did get an email from Gary of the GBs, who's a self-proclaimed challenge addict. Who has even completed his own challenges Fizzy grid. So Fizzy grid of challenge caches. Project GC does show that stat, which is nice. But he has qualified for the challenge with the top row and the upward diagonal. So he's got row 1 and B5 to O1. So he's qualified for the challenge. So awesome. Congratulations. The prize that I'm offering for people is for those who complete the entire grid. And it is a geocoin that will soon be minted. And I know that I've mentioned that for years since the cache was published. It will happen. So keep working at it, Gary of the GBs. If you complete that whole grid, then you'll be getting one of those geocoins. So yeah, I like to highlight that because it's just another little personal encouragement for people to get out caching, even if it's doing streaks of consecutive days.
That's right.
So,
and I would like to say from Sharon in our chat tonight, be like Sharon, who says, the show inspires me to find at least one challenge cache every month. I love that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Sharon. And keep on sending in your accomplishments. I'd love to hear about them.
Yeah, we love getting in those emails. It's always great to see one pop in with a qualifier. It's great to see. So, any other closing thoughts? Anything that you might want to add to this topic about the Fizzy? I should have a can of pop here somewhere.
I think it's really great to put a face to the word fizzy. So many people don't even know you're a person, that it was named for you.
Yeah, they may have thought that you named yourself after the Fizzy Grid.
Yes, that's right. So one time somebody came to the Ultimate Fizzy Challenge and they came and rang on the doorbell, and I was in the middle of a Bible study in my house with all these sort of 20-something people. And they all said, "Wow, you're famous." And I said, "Yeah, I'm famous in an extremely limited space."
Right, right.
Yeah,
I'm a very small fish in an even smaller pond. That's right. That's right. So, by the way, I encourage people to get on the forums and join in my campaign to try and get geocaching to explain what they have done to images. They, PNG images have completely stopped working. They come across as JPEGs, and everything else has changed, and they won't explain why. And so I have a campaign to try and get them to just tell us what's going on, because it's so strange.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a difficult topic because it's kind of technical, and a lot of people might be whoosh right over their heads.
Right.
But yeah, it affects everybody really across the board.
That's right.
If people understand what's actually happened, then it's a relatively easy fix. But that it happened means that everybody's got to do a bunch of work to fix things.
A bunch of puzzles broke. That's the big problem.
Yeah. Right.
Well, thank you, fizzymagic, for joining us tonight. It was wonderful.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, it was great to chat. And thank you, everybody who has been tuning in and chatting live. We have been watching the chat room and interacting as much as possible. The next show is going to be the first Thursday of December, which is December 3rd. Same time, same place. Watch social media, tune into Geocache Talk Network, subscribe, like us on Facebook, and you'll get all the news. And remember to send in those emails so that you can win a geocoin each month. And on that note, I don't think there's anything else. And so thanks for watching and listening. We will see you next month.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.